In today's video, I'd like to discuss the feelings we have when we lose somebody. Um, Almost all of us experience loss at different times in our lives. Sometimes they're family, sometimes they're friends, mere acquaintances. But whenever somebody dies, passes on, expires, whatever terminology you feel comfortable with, when you lose somebody in your life, regardless of that connection, it has varied consequences to your inner thoughts. You may possibly reflect on the relationship that you've had with them. You may look internally, like I certainly have over the last few, and think about where you are in life and what that means for your future. You may think about or posit it into ideas of longing for a simpler time before these types of consequences in life began to happen. Um, that's all interpersonal. And sorry about my dog over here. If you're watching me on YouTube, my dog's going to town on her toy. But I mentioned in yesterday's video that I lost somebody yesterday morning, and she's a friend from school. I had known her probably since kindergarten. She was in my life for almost the totality of it so far. We stayed in regular, constant contact. Not only personally, I mean, she would call me out of the clear blue to have conversations. We texted occasionally, especially when something was going on in the news that she knew I'd be interested in, or something that involved a classmate or the area that we grew up in. I was involved in her father's funeral. I was friends with her older brother for most of my life. And her death, while not necessarily unexpected, certainly happened sooner than any of us would have liked. She was sick for a long, long time. I mentioned when I first started making these videos again, back at the end of December, that around my birthday, when I turned 50, another person I went to high school with died. And, he died, as far as I know. Not a lot of information came out of it, but as far as I know, he died suddenly, most likely a heart condition. And then my friend who died yesterday, she had a pulmonary issue that has been plaguing her for decades now, for a very long time. And these things are, but these things are common as you get older, less common at my age, at 50. I also mentioned when I started shooting videos again that one of the impetus for me, or part of the impetus for me to get back into shooting daily videos again, was the death of Adam the Woo. Now, Adam the Woo is a prolific YouTuber. He's been around for more than 15 years, and he was a daily vlogger. And he was found dead in his home just before Christmas down in Florida. And one of the things the internet doing what the internet does is there was a lot of speculation as to what the cause of death was. He seemed otherwise healthy. He had just finished a trip overseas. He was talking, fervently about what the upcoming plans were for the new year, and then was found dead. So, of course, the internet being the internet, speculation occurred. Was he on drugs? Anybody that watched Adam's videos knew he wasn't on drugs. Was he suicidal? Anybody that watched Adam's videos knew that he was a happy person. But the internet does what the internet does. Well, luckily for us, and thankfully, his father posted today on social media that they got the toxicology reports back and the final autopsy reports. And indeed, he had died of natural causes, partly due to atherosclerosis and heart disease. He was 51 years old. So what this makes me want to discuss, and I don't want to take too much more of your time. Where am I at with time right now? I'm only at 4 minutes, but I don't want to take too much of your time with this. But it got me thinking about how we perceive death. Now, these three that I talked about, these were health related issues. Another person from high school that I knew I was never really close with, she died a few weeks ago of, I think she was actually a couple years younger than me. She died of breast cancer. And another one of those things where that's, there's always extenuating circumstances with cancer, right? Sometimes they're lifestyle choices, sometimes they're environmental, sometimes they're just, genetic. But that's one of those things that, a number of different reasons lead to cancers, but still a health concern. That is not the same as a lot of the loss that I experienced, and maybe some of you did as well, during the years that we were dealing with social unrest and awkwardness with COVID. During that period of time from 2020, early 2020, until probably late 2021, I think is when we started to see some semblance of normalcy again. During that period of time, I counted 13 people. 13 people in my life, a couple of dear friends, and then mostly acquaintances that died from different reasons. And I don't think any of them were natural causes. So some of them were suicides. Some of them were drug overdoses. And then some of those drug overdoses you attribute to suicide by drug overdose. But terrible things. Living through that period of time, one thing about me that, unless you know me in real life, one of those things about me worth noting is that for the better part of 15 years, I worked in the bar industry. I was a bouncer, I was a bartender, and, you get to know a lot of people very superficially. And that does not mean that those relationships are not strong and valid. It just means that you only know them in one context. In this case, in the confines of the bar in which that I worked at. Very rarely these people that you see sometimes several days a week. There are people that I know from the bar industry that I've seen more than my own parents, just because of proximity and time. And you generally don't see those people outside of those instances. You know them in that bar scene, but when they go, when their life comes to an end, it's still profound. It's still a meaningful impact on your own personal existence and something that's going to take a lot of time in your brain. And that got me to thinking, and I've experienced this in the past, and maybe you have as well, is this natural tendency that we have to give more weight and gravitas to people under different circumstances that pass away. We tend to vilify or demonize or somehow lessen the value when somebody takes their own life or somebody dies of an overdose or whatever the case may be. And we tend to give them more credence and more value in the passing when it's a health related concern and something or an accident, car accident or something to that effect, something in which they are just by nature a victim, as it were. And I don't know necessarily if these things are healthy. I don't know if this is, I don't believe it's healthy at all, but I don't know if it's outside of the realm of normal brain function and cognition. I think that we do this for a reason, and I've been weighing with the possibility and the probable reasons as to why. And I think some of it's society. I think some of it is carryover from Victorian ideals that inhabited themselves in modern Christianity. I think some of it is proximity to information that we have in ways that we didn't before. I think some of it is the efficacy and danger of a lot of modern narcotics, and also speed of travel, like car accidents and plane crashes and stuff like that. And I think all of these things put together have outpaced genetics and outpaced modern brain function and how we deal with these kind of things. In the same way that we have untoward and unreliable reactions to social media stuff and political views, I think we also do that socially with people that we know. We tend to make judgments. And sometimes these judgments aren't warranted. Sometimes they're completely wrong. And unfortunately, the brain, especially consciousness in and of itself, separate from the brain, doesn't rationalize these things very well. Our consciousness is simply a program that has evolved over the lifespan of our own existence to form a different way of thinking about things. So the way you think today is different from how you thought 20 or 30 years ago, which leads me to my conclusion on all of this. Life is short. I have said this on this channel. I will probably say this 1,000 more times. But life is short. And when we get these situations in which people pass, and we feel compelled to understand the circumstances, and we feel it is our privilege or our right, or we deem it necessary to understand all of the circumstances around the passing of an individual, we need to stop and try to remember that everybody's journey on this planet is individual. And everybody's path is privately their own. We all have struggles. We all have health concerns. We all have these things that happen in our lives. But to judge people over the totality of their circumstances, as if you've walked more than a minute in their shoes, is unfair. And I think we need to pump the brakes on that kind of stuff and just witness the loss of life for exactly what it is. Somebody's lost something precious and permanently. I normally try to have fun with these videos. I try to keep things a little bit upbeat, or at least comically angry, if that makes sense as a term. But I've been struggling with this one today. Leong, her name was. She, you often hear when people pass that they were just good. There was, they were a caring, kind, wonderful person. That is the embodiment of who Leong was. And she was cherished as a friend. And while she had some personality quirks that I found sometimes comical, they were also incredibly endearing. She had a wonder about her, a wonderment at the world, an awestruck nature in which everything she heard about was just the most amazing thing to her. And she would talk about simple everyday things as if they were just astonishing beyond belief. And she wasn't a simple person. She had incredible, deep thoughts. We had a couple of long conversations about life, especially right out of high school. Like, we stayed in touch regularly right out of high school, and then that slowed down for a while, and then would pick back up again. And then she started a relationship with my parents a few years back because she lived nearby, and she was just a good person, a really dear human being. And it's a shame, but none of us are getting out of this alive. We all are gonna meet the end at some point in time. And all we can do in between are live these days and these moments the best way that we can and cherish them. Because even in, like, tonight, for example, I have 40 pages I have to read of Hegel, who, if you have not read any Hegel, he is a tough philosopher to read, and it's translated from German, which makes it even harder. But it's very easy to look at these moments and go, I got to get through this reading. And get on to the next thing. But it's better to stop and appreciate the fact that you have the opportunity to do even the most mundane and boring things. That this life is precious, and it passes very fleetingly. Take care of yourselves. Cherish the people around you. As the cliche goes, make sure you tell them you love them, because they could be gone tomorrow. Thank you for watching The Daily. I'm not The Daily. Jesus, man, old habits die hard. Thank you for watching The Christopher Hess Show. My name is Christopher Hess, and I will see you tomorrow with another video. Hey, thanks again for watching The Christopher Hess Show. I'm really glad you took the time to watch. Now, if you liked what you saw, you can click right here. This will help you subscribe to my channel. Or you can click over here for a video that YouTube thinks is one you would like to watch. Once again, thanks for watching and have a great day.